noches.
¿Qué tal? Bueno, somos Carlo Dursi y Piluca Vaquero, representantes de los productores en la Junta Directiva. Bienvenidas y bienvenidos a la Academia de Cine y a las actividades de su fundación. Damos las gracias a Apple Originals porque estamos felices de recibir a uno de los productores de cine y televisión más exitosos y reconocidos en la historia del entretenimiento. Sus películas han recaudado más de 16.000 millones de dólares en todo el mundo y obtenido numerosos reconocimientos. Es ganador de 6 Oscars, a los que ha estado nominado 41 veces. Tiene 5 Grammys, a los que suma 8 nominaciones, 4 Globos de Oro, a los que ha sido nominado 23 veces, y 22 Emmy, a los que ha sido nominado 113 veces.
Y si no es suficiente, hay una cosa muy importante. Es graduado en psicología, que creo que esto es muy importante en nuestra profesión y como productores también. Aficionado al cine desde temprana edad y con interés en la fotografía, después de la universidad trabajó en publicidad en sus inicios. Su carrera como productor comenzó con películas memorables como Farewell My Lovely y American Gigolo. Con su socio, Don Simpson, produjo éxitos como Flashdance, Top Gun, Day of Thunder, Beverly Hills Cop 1, 2, Bad Boys, Dangerous Mind y muchas más. Tras el fallecimiento de su socio Simpson, Bruckheimer produjo otros éxitos como Con Air, Armageddon, Enemy of the States, Gone in 60 Seconds, etcétera, etcétera, para llegar a la saga Pirates of the Caribbean y así ha recaudado, os digo, a lo lindo, 3.700 millones de dólares en taquilla mundial. Hoy está promocionando aquí la película Fórmula 1 y como productores estamos muy contentos, no porque digamos, no haya otras especialidades, sino porque desde el estudio se han decidido poner en valor el rol del productor y traerlo para promocionar esta serie, protagonizada por nuestros queridísimos Javier Bardem y también porque, sí, querido Brad Pitt.
En televisión ha producido series tan populares como CSI o el programa de televisión más visto del mundo durante 5 años, Caso Abierto, o Sin Rastro, y The Amazing Race, que ha ganado 9 premios Emmy, 8 de ellos consecutivos.
Nada más, acompañado esta tarde por Dani Matilla, damos la bienvenida al productor Jerry Bruckheimer.
Thank you. Hola, buenas noches.
Gracias a todos por venir. Yo voy a hacer las preguntas en inglés, así que si queréis escuchar os tenéis que poner los cascos y ya está. Let's talk about the legend, Jerry, because you started in this business like 50 years ago. At first, even longer. You were doing advertising. When did you and how did you find the calling for making movies?
Well, I always was mesmerized by the theater. Ever since I was a little kid, my parents would drop me off on Saturdays to go to a movie. And from the time I was 10 or 12 years old. And that experience has carried with me my entire life. That group experience where we can enjoy something together, laugh, cry, and just feel something, hopefully, if the movie's good enough. And that is something I always aimed for. But coming from Detroit, the lower middle class family really had no means to come to California or anywhere to make movies. But there was an advertising business in Detroit. They advertised cars. So what I did after I graduated college, I joined a large advertising agency in the mailroom. And that was like $50 a week. And my parents were very upset with me that after spending a fortune on my education, that here I am making $50 a week, just like any kid, a high school grad could do it. And there I am trying to get myself into the television department to learn about film because I had really no education in college. They didn't have a film program where I went to school. I always was interested in photography and took a lot of photographs even when I was very young, won a lot of awards and had an exhibit at the university of my photographs. But that was it as far as my film, and it was stills.
You started in the business when Hollywood was run by people who loved films. Now it's different because we have like the streamers, we have Wall Street, we have conglomerates. Is it more difficult to make the kind of film you make nowadays than in the past?
It's always difficult. It's never easy. And the biggest successes are usually the most difficult to get made. But every one of them's hard. Every one of them has their complications. Every one of them just is fraught with right turns and left turns, and you always have to navigate the right turns.
What was the biggest challenge, for example, with Formula One? Because it's a film that was born like a streaming process. After that, it was released on theaters, and we could say that it has become the first real success, both on the theaters and online. Is that really big? Is that really important for the industry to prove that you can get success both ways?
I think it's very important for us to make movies that captivate audiences in theaters and also can do the same thing at home. I mean, the important thing for us as filmmakers is to get people to go to the theaters. I mean, that's the experience I love. Look, I always use the analogy, we all have a kitchen in our homes, but we still like to go out to eat. But you go out to eat to a really good restaurant. You want a really good meal, and that's on us as filmmakers to give them a good meal, to make something that they want to leave their homes for and enjoy in a theater with a group experience.
As we said earlier, you have been making movies for more than 50 years, but in the last 5, for example, you did Top Gun Maverick, which was huge after the pandemic. It was nominated for Best Picture, and now you have F1. What drives you to keep going and trying to make these crazy, complicated films?
Again, I love entertaining audiences, and that's why I do what I do. My biggest thrill is on an opening weekend to stand back in a theater and watch people laugh and cry and applaud and have a good time. We want to give them just 2 hours of entertainment, take them away from their lives, and give them some enjoyment with a beginning, middle, and end in that order. So that is what I thrive for. I thrive to make pictures that audiences can lose themselves in and take them away from whatever problems they're dealing with.
You have worked with the best talent in the action genre, also outside of that, but you're a master of that. You have done these last 2 films with Joseph Kosinski. What do you think makes him such a special talent?
Well, it's hard to quantify talent that comes from everywhere. Joe was an architect and then an engineer. So how do you, as an architect and an engineer, how do you become a filmmaker? He found his way in through commercials and making short films. And he got the opportunity to make a few movies. And fortunately, he worked with Tom Cruise. Tom had a great experience with him. So when we were getting ready to find a director for Top Gun Maverick, Joe's name came up right away because Tom was a big fan of his.
And he's also behind the idea of this film. He's like the creator with Erwin Kruger, right?
Yeah, his idea for Top Gun was his idea with Goose's son. And it was his idea to make the F1 movie also. It was his idea. The story was his idea.
There's a lot of talk in the business, also in the industry, but also with media, about how we don't have movie stars anymore. How do you feel about that? Are movie stars still relevant? Because you have Brad Pitt, and this has been his biggest success ever after 40 years in the business.
Yeah, we still have movie stars. I mean, they're still out there. We still enjoy them. We still go to see their movies when they're good. It's nice to have a movie star. At least it creates an image of something that is based on their best work, and you hope the next movie is on their best work too. So, look, you need something to lead them into the theater. If it's a movie star, if it's a concept, if it's a book, if it's a magazine article, if whatever it is, if it's a sequel, whatever we can get the public's attention, because there's so much clutter, there's so much stuff online, it's just everywhere. We have to find a way to get their attention, to make noise so they'll come to see what we do. Sometimes it's the movie itself. That's what happened with this movie. It's the movie that drove people to the theater because it didn't have a really big opening. It opened very well, but it just kept playing and playing and playing. And they say when you work with a streamer, they're going to, in 45 days, they're going to put it out streaming. This movie came out the end of June, and it goes on streaming December 12th. So that's because the movie played so well. It played so well that IMAX, which we had for 2 weeks, put it back in August in the theaters, again, because the business was so good for them.
We were talking about Brad Pitt, but you have worked also with Tom Cruise, with Nicolas Cage, with Eddie Murphy, with Johnny Depp, Will Smith. What do you think separates a good actor from a good movie star? What do they have to have?
There's something that's magical about a movie star. It's hard to quantify what is a movie star. They have to be a good actor. Start there. They have to be pleasing to the eye. That's another thing that's important. But there's some magic that happens when they're in a movie. It's hard to describe what it is, but the audience picks up on it and they lean into it. And if the actor himself picks good material and also picks material that works for an audience, that's even better.
Talking about great actors, you have worked twice with Javier Bardem. The first time was in Pirates of the Caribbean, and now again in Formula One. What did you think of him, of Javier?
He's a real joy to work with. He's such a fine actor and such a fine gentleman. He's always a pleasure to work with. He's just somebody that when you see him on the set, you get a big smile on your face. He's gregarious, he's funny, he's emotional, he loves what he does. He adds some, whatever part he takes, there's some of Javier in it. He brings something to every part that he does. He adds so much to the screenplay. He works with the director, works with the writers. You know, you have a lot of actors that can't wait to get home. They just want to work and go home. Not Javier. He's on the set. He doesn't go to his trailer a lot. He just enjoys the entire process.
Formula One is really popular all around the world. How was the challenge of finding the right approach to how to tell this story? Because there are so many people that know a lot of stuff about this sport, but you have to also appeal to a general audience. How's finding the right approach?
Well, first of all, you have to tell a great story. And this is a redemption story. It's about a character who had an opportunity when he was very young and blew it. And this is his chance to come back and prove how good he really is. So that's the heart of the story. And then what you have to do is surround characters around him that embrace him, that give him conflict, that move the story along. It's a kind of a character study inside this amazing world of Formula One, which is just phenomenal. If you don't know anything about Formula One, there are 10 teams, 2 drivers to each team, but it's the only sport in the world where your teammate is your competitor. And that's exactly what we latched on to make this movie.
The action sequences are amazing, but I think the film also works because of the dramatic element. In a way, it brings me back to the 90s as well as Top Gun Maverick did, where there was a different vibe to the characters and to the emotion. How important was playing to that emotion to make people go back to the cinemas? As you said, the first weekend was good, but what happened after that was great.
Yeah, it's always about the emotion. It's always how we tell our story, how we move our character through the plot. That's the most important thing. When you have an actor who's so gifted as Brad Pitt, you have no idea what it took to make this movie for him. First of all, when we met with him to make this movie, first thing he said, I love the idea, I love the story, but I have to drive that car. Now, that's a whole other complicated process. You're dealing with a very expensive actor. How do you get the insurance company? How do you get Apple to lean in? All these things. How do you convince Formula One that we're going to make them look good? Those are all daunting tasks for a producer. How do you raise the money? It's all these things that we go through to get this movie made. So what we did is we went to Lewis Hamilton, who is a 7-time world champion. And we said, we want to make this movie. We want you to produce it with us because you will make it authentic. You will make sure we won't make any missteps. Then you have to get Formula One to lean in. And look, they're on a real high right now. So the way they look at it is a movie only can hurt them. So what we have to do is convince them that we're going to make them look good. And that took us a year. And it took us a long time to get the screenplay right, to convince them. And then you have to worry about the 10 teams, because they're for sure going to be one of the villains. And that's the last thing that we wanted to do. So we had to convince all these teams and drivers that they're going to be well represented in this movie.
Who was the toughest to get on the screen? Alonso, Sainz, Norris?
Well, it was Red Bull, because Lewis was driving for Mercedes that year, and there was a huge rivalry between Mercedes and Red Bull. They didn't like each other at all. So Red Bull was convinced they were going to be the villain. all the way. It took us almost a year to convince Christian that, no, you're going to look good. Believe me, you're not going to be the villain.
You have been filming this movie for so long because you were taking advantage of all the Grand Prix events and basically filming guerrilla style when they were not racing. How was doing that from a production point of view?
Well, it was very difficult because, first of all, we had to train Brad and Damson 4 months in various cars. We started in an F4 car and moved them up to an F2, which is the car he drove. It was an F1 body with an F2 engine. So that was 4 months of training. Just look at, people come up to me and say, Jerry, did you get in that car? Were you able to drive that car? An F2 driver takes a month to be able to drive an F1 car. That's how difficult it is. And they mold the seat to your body, so you just don't jump in one of these cars and drive it. And Brad, who was an excellent driver, it took him so long to master. If you look at the steering wheel, there's so many buttons on the steering wheel that you have to operate. And, you know, going into these corners he was going 180 miles an hour, and you break down to 50 to hit these corners, and then you have to act. So it was Joe. Joe kept saying, Brad, you're having too good a time. This is supposed to be scary for you. Stop smiling. So we had all this kind of things going on behind the scenes to make this car. But what we did is we tried to make it as authentic as possible. So we had 16 different camera angles on the car, 4 at a time. Claudio Miranda was a phenomenal cinematographer. We had a remote camera, which has never been done before. So we could pan from Brad's face to the car next to him while he was driving. So we had to have antennas all around the tracks. We went to 9 different tracks twice because we got hit by a strike. So we shot for 4 days, and then we were shut down because the actors went out. So what happened is Joe went and shot the 9 races without the actors. It was supposed to be done by second unit directors, so we're very fortunate that Joe got to do it. And then the following year, the actors joined us. We hit the 9 races all over again. But the amount of technical knowledge that went into making this movie is unbelievable, from the camera work. And then Apple, fortunately, we made it with Apple. If you look at your iPhone, there's a little camera in your iPhone. They enhanced that camera and put it on 2 cars in every F1, all the 9 races that we did. So some of the footage you're seeing is actually from an F1 race. Then you get all this footage, and we have 5,000 hours of film that we gave to our editor to work with Joe. Can you imagine going through all that film? And he did it pretty much by himself. And he's an Steve Maroney's Academy Award-winning editor, and you can see why, what he did with this movie. And then you have to figure out, how do we communicate to an audience with the music? Because the cars are so noisy. You have Hans Zimmer, who's an absolute genius, figured out a way to cut through the sound of the engines. And then you had Lewis telling us there are 4 different engines, that we had to record 4 different engines because our engine was an F2 engine, not an F1 engine. So we had to go out and record all the F1 engines for the various tracks because every track sounds differently. So the accuracy in this movie is just unbelievable.
Was there any moment when you thought, okay, we can make this movie?
We can't?
We can't.
No, I never say we can't. There's always a way. You just got to figure it out. And sometimes it takes time, but you figure out a way to do it.
What has been the most difficult film for you? Like the one where you learned what has brought you here after
It's
all
always
this
the
time?
next one. They're always difficult, every one of them. They're the easiest ones that you look at sometimes become the hardest. You know, when you look at a movie like Pirates of the Caribbean and you have such a great ride, you have a lot of fun, that was really hard. We had hurricanes, we had all kinds of things that disrupted our production, but somehow you fight through it.
And you did, for example, the second and the third film back to back, which is crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. We didn't have a finished script on the second one. It was a real challenge, but somehow we put it all together. We had a fabulous director and a great team who made it all work.
What have you learned making this movie? Is there anything that, okay, it's like, this is new for me?
Well, I knew nothing about F1, so let's start there. So that's the first thing I learned, is about that great sport and how phenomenal it is and how the technical expertise that goes into building these cars, to making these engines. These drivers are going 220 miles an hour, and they're hitting those corners at 80 miles an hour. It's just unbelievable, the precision. These are phenomenal athletes. And the way they pick the drivers, first of all, they come up from F4, F3, F2, and you have to be a phenomenal driver. That's one part of it. You have to be charismatic. That's number two. And number three, you have to be good looking because they represent a brand. So you look at all these drivers, they could be movie stars. They're all so handsome, every one of them.
And what makes a good filmmaker? You have worked with so many of the great directors of the last 44 or 5 decades. What do you look for in a director when you are asking them to do a film for you?
Well, it's always, are they a good storyteller? That's number one. That's the first thing. The second thing you look at, visually, do they do something special and interesting? Because, like I said earlier, there's so much clutter. You want, when you show a commercial or a trailer, you want to have something that speaks out to an audience that's different than the trailer that you saw before. So the visual part of it is very important to me.
Nowadays, we read a lot of news talking about, for example, reshoots of film. How do you relate to that? Do you prefer to do most of the work in advance, or is it good to have like distance and say, okay, we need this to complete the movie?
No, you try to do everything in advance. You try to lay everything out so there are no surprises.
Sometimes we read how films start shooting, for example, without a finished screenplay, which is kind of risky. What do you think should change in the industry right now? Do we need to do films in a different way?
No, I think we've been doing it pretty well. I mean, for a long time, we've been making a lot of movies since the talkies started, and even before that. There are people that make phenomenal movies. We have great writers all around the world. We have great directors. We have great production designers and cinematographers, and just all the way down great editors, because they work very hard in the industry and they care about what they do and they put their time and energy into making the perfect movie, which there isn't, but we try to do it every time.
Do you feel hopeful about the future? Because sometimes people are afraid that the movie theaters, for example, are going to close. It's going to get more complicated to get people on the city and on the theaters. Do you think making movies is going to be possible 100 years from now?
I think so. I think we still want to get out of our homes. We still want to go to a theater. We still want to have that group experience. That's exciting for me. And obviously, look at Christmas. I mean, Wicked was a big success. The Disney movie is a big success. I mean, it did enormous business in China. So there's still an appetite for people going to the theaters.
That's interesting, China, because nowadays they don't want to release many Hollywood films. Do you think that's a battle that has to be gained by Hollywood, or it makes sense that in a way it's their own market?
Well, it's their market. They like their homegrown product, which they should, just like every country does. You love here in Spain the films that your Spanish filmmakers make. And the same thing there, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Is there anything on your bucket list as a producer, a film that maybe wasn't possible in the past and now you want to take another try?
Well, we have about 40 different things we're developing, and we try to get them all made, but that's hard. So, one at a time or sometimes two at a time, we keep pushing the rock up the hill.
People were even talking about maybe a crossover between Days of Thunder and Formula One. Would be that something that you would like to see on the screen and make?
That's going to be hard to do, but it would be a good idea.
It's been like 30 years without Tom and Brad in the same screen, so it would be really, really fun. You were talking earlier about Claudio Miranda, which already did an amazing work in Top Gun Maverick. What was the biggest challenge for him besides the camera? Claudio Miranda, the DOP.
Claudio, I think the biggest challenge was, how do you figure out to put cameras on these cars that are going 220 miles an hour without vibrating? It's unbelievable the amount of work and effort. He designed a special camera that Sony made that is a third the size of what we used in Top Gun, and we had 6 cameras in the cockpit of a Top Gun. Now the camera is this big, and he designed it, and figured out a way to put 16 of them around that car and give you the real experience, plus putting the Apple cameras in the real races. So to create that remote camera was nobody else had done it before.
Mm-hmm. Back in the day, it was really difficult to see a film like Formula One or even Top Gun Maverick in the Oscar conversation because in the past they felt that the awards were meant to different kind of film. That's why, for example, it was really surprising to see a film as The Fugitive nominated for Best Picture. Do you think there is more respect nowadays for making these complicated but also emotional films as Top Gun, F1?
We hope so. We never know, but it's not up to us. We make the movies and we put them out there, and we hope that we get people to go see them, and then sometimes you get nominated. So that's a nice thing when that happens.
Your films have gotten so many nominations, but I think that Top Gun Maverick was the first one under your name. What did you feel when that happened? Because it was on the conversation, but sometimes with different kind of films, they can stay out of the group. It happened. What did you feel?
Well, you're always, elated when you get, recognized for your work, especially by the Academy. So we're thrilled. But we make them for audiences, and if the awards come, that's fantastic. It's a great kind of reward for what we do. But our gift is to give an audience some pleasure and a ride and entertain them. That's our challenge. That's my challenge as a producer.
What was your experience of watching this film with the audience for the first time? Did you realize, okay, we got it?
Yeah, it was really a great feeling when we went to the Chinese theater, which is, I think, 1,000 seats, and the place was filled, and you can just see the excitement to see the movie, and then the excitement of watching it, and the laughs, and then people cheered up, and then the applause at the end. It's really a great experience for a producer to see something they've worked on for 4 years, to have an audience embrace it.
You have had so many more hits than non-hits, but what have you learned from a failure or from a film that didn't accomplish what you wanted for it? Is there any lesson that you learned in the past?
Yeah, I think you learn more from your failures than from your successes, and that's lessons hopefully you don't do again.
Is there a lesson, an advice that you would give, for example, for all the producers in this room?
Have a great screenplay. That's it. It's always about the story, no matter what. That's the key. You got to tell a great story.
Is there anything that you're working more actively right now?
We're working on 4 or 5 movies, and they're all in various phases.
Where do you get that energy from for working so much?
I just love what I do. I get up every morning. I'm excited. I'm excited to go to work. Not that every day is a great day, because we all know we have bad days. But we don't lose patience. We make movies, and we make them to make people feel better. At least I do. And so for me, it's a pleasure to get up and try to create something that we can have mass audiences watch.
What was the most difficult day while working in F1? The biggest challenge, like concrete?
Well, I think we wouldn't have a movie if we didn't have F1 leaning, so that was the most important thing. And then you have to have Apple who finance it. But when we went out and pitched the movie, we had Brad, we had Lewis Hamilton, we had Aaron Kruger, who wrote Top Gun Maverick. So we really had a leg, and Joe Kosinski, who did a phenomenal job on Top Gun Maverick. And we pitched to 9 different studios, and every one of them put a bid in to make the movie.
That's amazing. How do you feel about the future of theatrical versus streaming? Because F1 is the perfect example that both can coexist, as we were saying earlier. The film has made $630 million in the box office, which is really, really good. Do you feel hopeful about that collaboration?
Yeah, I think so. Again, like I've said before, it's all about what we give an audience. We got to give them something that they love. Now, that's amorphous. That's hard. If it was easy, we'd all make big hit movies, so it's not easy. It's very difficult to do. It takes a combined group of really talented people to get something that's successful. And sometimes you have really talented people and it doesn't work. You never know. Mm-hmm. The audience knows much more than we do, and that's why we preview our movies. because they look at it and they say, wait a second, you forgot this or don't have that. And that's important to us.
That's something that really doesn't happen in Spanish cinema. How do you, what's your relationship with those test screening?
Look, you learn a lot. One lesson we learned when we made Armageddon, the audience told us he never gave her a ring. He never asked her to marry him. So we shot a scene where Ben Affleck gave her a ring and proposed to her. That we didn't have the movie. We didn't get it. The girls in the audience said, "What's going on here?" So we listened to them.
And have you ever regretted changing something? Regretted changing something in a film?
No, never. No, it always makes the movie better.
¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta para Jerry Bruckheimer? Muchas preguntas.
Buenas, un honor tenerte aquí, Jerry. La pregunta básica es que eres el productor típico que piensa, bueno, es lógico que si haces dinero tienes más posibilidades de hacer más proyectos. ¿Ahora? ¿Sí? ¿Sí? Ok. El dinero va asociado a tu persona como productor. Entonces, mi pregunta es, ¿el proyecto es en el cual creísteis que ibais a petarlo y no fue así? ¿Qué sensaciones se tienen cuando se estrella uno en un proyecto en el cual cree? Y otra es, esa es una visión muy romántica del productor de creer en un producto que sabes que no va a dar dinero, pero tienes que hacerlo. ¿Cuál sería ese proyecto que tuviste que hacerlo, si lo hiciste, y sabías que no iba a dar dinero?
I'll do it. Has there been any film that you were uncertain about if it would be a success, but you felt that you had to do it? It's like, okay, I may lose some money with this one, but I have to do it.
Every one of them. You never know. They're all amorphous. You have no idea what they're going to do. Look, I make movies that I want to go see. And hopefully I'll keep making movies that audiences agree with me. But you never know. They're always risky, every one of them.
La primera era, perdona.
No sé ya cuál era. Esa es la segunda. La primera era bueno, es que más o menos ya lo he contestado también.
Vale, vamos a la siguiente.
First of all, thank you for producing the most important and some of my favorite movies of whole time. My question is, when you read a project or a script and you see, okay, this is the essence of the project, as you just say, Formula One, this is the story of a loser who wants another ride, a last opportunity to access to success. Which is the key of the project when you read a script? Thanks.
Do I want to see it? That's it. If I put the script down and say this is something I would pay money to go see, that makes me move forward.
Hi, thank you for being here. My question is about other people's opinion. As a producer, I imagine that you ask to your team like a lot of questions about the projects where they're doing it. But I just want to know how you know a project. I mean, it's very hard to know in the future if a project is going to be a success or not. But how do you know inside? How do you feel that this project is gonna work? And I'm not talking about the screenplay, okay? I know screenplay is king. I'm talking about the whole other ingredients that have to be together and make you feel like this project is gonna work, even though other people is saying it's not gonna work.
You got to go with your instincts. That's what we do. We go with our instincts. And I've been around long enough that I've had failures, I've had successes. You learn from your failures, and you hope that you're making the right decisions, but you never know. You go with your gut. That's it. That's my whole career has been going with what I believe is going to be entertaining an audience.
Hi. Over here. Up.
Ah, okay.
No. Here. Hi. Jerry, thanks. Thank you very much for this, for all your awesome movies. I'm very into the VFX industry. Since the pandemic and the lockdown, it was like a bubble of productions that burst and explode with all the strikes. And since then, I'm seeing how the industry is drying. We are supposed to have a ramp up. That is not happening at all. Since your movies are pretty VFX intense, I would like to ask you what's your take on this? What is the future of VFX? Not only talking about AI, which I think is going to be pretty disruptive, but more about, are we finally seeing that ramp up? Because I have had the opportunity to talk with people from Apple and Amazon lately, and they told me that perhaps 2026 is the year when we are going to see that. So what's your take on this?
I think I agree with them. It's taken Hollywood a long time to recover from A, COVID, and B, the strikes. And they're just starting to get in their rhythm, and it's going to take more time. But what's great about visual effects is you can tell any story about anything and make it real, because the effects are spectacular. When you look at F1, you say, well, there's not many effects in there. There's an enormous amount of effects in there. We had to replace cars. We took one car out of every race and put our car in that place. It's seamless what they've done. They're absolutely brilliant, the team that we had doing it. So that kind of expertise that we can make a movie about Formula One, put our car in actual races, and you can't tell what we've done. That speaks volumes for visual effects and what the future is going to bring.
Hello?
Okay.
Over here. Hi, it's an honor being here talking with you. I would like to ask you, as a producer, how do you find the balance between, the artistic creativity for a movie, and then, there's also this commercial part and the budget and all stuff. How do you find balance there?
Well, it's all about your story. You got to tell a really good story with great characters. And if you do it right, it's artistic. If you don't do it right, it's not artistic. So it's all about getting a great screenplay.
Alberto. Sí.
Me gustaría saber en los principios, en sus comienzos. Me gustaría saber en sus comienzos qué 2 o 3 grandes aprendizajes tuvo en sus primeras 2 o 3 películas que lo hayan acompañado hasta hasta el día de la fecha.
Was there anything like 1, 2 lessons that you learned while making your first movies that have been useful for the rest of your career?
You better have a good screenplay. That's the key. Well, the writers don't get enough glory for what they do. They really don't. I mean, they sit in a dark room. They're sitting in front of their computers. They're coming up with these characters and these stories, and we certainly help them, but they have to actually do it. And it's so hard. And the amount of energy and time that we put into telling our stories, and it all starts with their computer.
Carlo?
You already said that the writer as a killer element, but I would like to know, what do you think is now one of the most under-evaluated element in the filmmaking ecosystem, the producer we should pay attention to?
Well, I think, again, it's getting the right material. It's always about getting the right material. That's the hardest thing to do. Like I said, whether it's a book, whether it's an original idea, that is what we gleam onto. And the hardest thing for me as a producer is when you're working on a screenplay and you've worked out the story, and then the writer goes away for 4 months. And the scariest thing for me is you turn that first page and you start reading it. And that is frightening because you have no idea what they did, not a clue. And sometimes they get it right and sometimes they get it wrong. But not that I say it's wrong, it's just not effective for us. And that is the hardest thing. How do you recover if it doesn't work? If you have a great one, you're dancing, around the room. If you don't, you have to figure out how do we get it in the right way.
Hi, Jerry. My name is Alejandro here. Nice to meet you. I would like to ask you one question. I've been writing a movie for some years. I've been working not just in the writing, I've been working in the business plan around. I think I have new ideas to show a movie. I think you did kind of that in Formula One, because I think as a marketing way, you're showing also kind of a movie in the social media. I have some ideas for that. And I would like to ask you if you want to read my script, because I think maybe I'm not laughing, I'm seriously, and I'm asking to you because you're here and I'm here. I want to make the best movie for new age people. It talks about masculinity, a new way of being a man, vulnerability, and it's not just about being homosexual or not, it's just being vulnerable as a man, as a person. And it also have phrasings. I'm gonna shoot it on Canary Islands. It's in Spanish, but I always thought about mixing English and Spanish because there is a character who represents the rebel. In a way, I've been making a study of that, and I wanna break that concept of the rebel and being a man, a strong man, in a new way. So if you want, I will love to send you the script, talk, and...
Sure, have your agent or have an agent send it to us. We can't take it from you, unfortunately, but sure.
Sí, Dani, si le puedes traducir tú. Son dos preguntas. La primera es sobre la música. La música en todas sus películas, las canciones son muy potentes, de hecho muchas han llevado al Oscar. ¿Hasta qué punto influye él en la decisión de esas canciones? Y luego ha tenido la suerte de trabajar con los dos hermanos Scott, con Ridley y Tony. Para él, ¿cuál de los dos es mejor? Y que nos saque dudas, porque muchos aquí estamos todavía con esas dudas. Gracias.
Okay, that's a tough one. There is an ending debate about who is the better Scott brother. Is there a one you prefer in your heart, like Ridley or Tony? That's the second one.
Well, Ridley is an amazing filmmaker. I mean, look at his... And Tony is a whole different type of filmmaker, so they're completely different. But they're both, genetically, they're very gifted, those two. They're amazing.
The first one is really interesting because he was saying that pop songs in your films are really important. Always has been, and that happens again with F1. You have, for example, Ed Sheeran and many more artists. Is that something that you also put on your projects? Do you think that music can be a way of selling films?
Well, I think if it works for the movie, it's got to work for the movie. And on F1, we made a deal with Atlantic Records and Kevin Weaver, and we put together a lot of artists to be in the movie, but a lot of them didn't work. So some of the biggest artists aren't in the film because the song didn't work for the movie. So the song has to work for that particular scene, and that's so important. We don't jukebox a movie where you just throw a bunch of hit artists into a movie. Everything is very specific for the scene that it's in.
That's something we learned, for example, with Armageddon, one of your films that makes the film in a way. It takes the film to another place. She has a question.
Thank you for coming here. I'm Anna. I work with you in Pirates of the Caribbean 4. So as a producer, I think you are one of the best because a part of producing the creative production, I mean, was a big pleasure for me, being from Europe, going to Hawaii, LA. I mean, what you did is spectacular. And I will remember all my life. And the question for F1 is, it was a strike in LA, I mean, all the writers, but I understand that you were shooting all the time. Why you were shooting?
Well, the writers went out. We had our script, so we didn't need the writers. And the actors went out. We didn't need the actors. So we had to shoot the car footage.
Okay.
We had to shoot all the races.
Okay.
So we had to do all 9 races. It was supposed to be with the second unit director, but fortunately we got Joe Kaczynski to do it because he had nothing else to do. He didn't have his actors. So it took 2 years. So as I said earlier, we shot the movie for just the action footage at 9 races, and then the next year we came back with Brad and our cast and put them in the cars.
Hi. One question. I always loved your logo at the beginning of your movies. It was one of those things as a kid that I thought, okay, that is how I know I'm going to see a really entertaining movie. I want to know, how did you come up with that logo of the tree and the lightning? Because it's pretty spectacular for a logo.
Well, we have a farm in Kentucky. My wife's from Kentucky. And we have this 300-year-old tree there. And it's just, and I actually photographed the tree, and that's part of the logo. But I always feel that an idea brings life to what we do. And that's why the tree blossoms. Because the ideas that are either from us or from you or from our writers or from whatever is what makes the magic that we all do.
Hi, Jerry. You said that you've got around 40 projects on the table, let's say, out of which 4 or 5 are in development or production. How do you decide when you've got 40 great scripts, which ones are going to be greenlit and which ones are a priority? And I would like to know if the new Pirates of the Caribbean is one of those priorities.
I'll start with that one. It is one of the priorities, and we're certainly working hard on that. We're working on National Treasure. We're working on another Top Gun. We're working on another Days of Thunder. And what happens is, I'm also working on a movie with Michael Mann called Heat 2, which is going to be really a phenomenal book and great screenplay. But some of them rise to the top and some don't. So you have to keep pushing them up the hill, and some of them get to the precipice and some don't. Doesn't mean you don't put the effort into every one of them, because you do.
Hola. Muchas gracias por estar en la Academia de Cine. Yo tengo 2 preguntas. ¿Cuáles son sus referentes y qué legado de producción le gustaría dejar? Gracias.
What kind of legacy would you like to leave to the people who come after you and is going to be making movies in the future?
Well, look, my legacy is that I've entertained audiences, and that's what I want it to be. I want it to be that, like I keep saying, we give people some joy in their life for a couple hours and make them forget about whatever's bothering them, take them away from whatever distractions they have. And if we tell a great story with great actors and great characters and fabulous storytelling with terrific directors, we're capable of doing it. F1 did it, Top Gun did it. The whole legacy of movies that I've made, a lot of them have captured that magic.
And the first one was, who have you looked up through your career? Who are the people that you said, like, okay, I want to make movies like he does?
Well, I mean, there's so many great directors. I mean, one of my favorite is David Lean, Bridge on the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago. I mean, big canvases, great characters, great storytelling, sweeping epics. And that's what we try to do.
Mm-hmm. Any more questions? Okay.
Hi, as a Formula One fan, thanks very much for the film. Really enjoyed it, and I appreciate how difficult that must have been to make from the technical point of view. My question is, I'm just really interested in your thoughts about the threats and opportunities that AI present us all in making movies in the future.
Well, I think it's there. We're not going to stop it. It's with us. We have to figure out a way to harness it and use it. And the future is going to tell us how that's going to work. But certainly we don't want to take anything away from the creative people that we've worked with. I certainly support them, and we have to figure out a way to make that work for us and work with the talented people that we continue to work with. How to enhance the experience for an audience.
Hi. So once you've spent all that amount of time just sorting out how you're gonna get everything done, and the shooting starts, or even the editing, what percentage of you it's more proactive in their creative process, and what percentage of you it's more into letting everyone take the lead on their area of expertise?
I'm there to help them make a great movie. That's what I'm there for. And give them the tools that they need. Not everything they always want, but give them the tools that they actually need. And that's really important, and that's what a good producer does. Make sure that the director, the writers, that we take away all the noise. We let the noise land on our desk and not their desk. And so they can focus on making a terrific film.
¿Una pregunta más? Aquí. Vale, arriba también ahí.
Hola. ¿Cree que es posible un retorno al cine de autor de gran presupuesto como en los 70, tipo El Cazador, Apocalipsis Now, esos grandes autores haciendo grandes películas con mucho dinero? Hay alguna, Oppenheimer podría ser un ejemplo, pero yo siempre en la carrera de los Oscar empiezo a echar de menos esa gran superproducción de autor que sí se veía en los años 70 y que hoy en día prácticamente ha desaparecido.
Do you think it's possible to go back to the time like the 70s, for example, when you could have really expensive films that were auteur-driven? Because sometimes he misses that when you look at the films that are nominated for Best Picture, there's not like great films like in a great production, but also a great filmmaker, like The Godfather, maybe, or he said Apocalypse Now, and la otra, ¿cuál fue? The Deer Hunter, like big films, expensive films, but auteur films.
Yeah, I'm certainly, nobody's going to say that Jim Cameron's not an auteur, and he's making big, expensive movies. So there is a way, obviously, to do it. But you look at Nolan, another great director, and they make big, expensive movies. They're enormously talented, and that's why Hollywood gives them the money. And just to find those really talented voices as directors and as writers is what our job is.
I'm in the back. Very nice to meet you, Jerry.
Same here.
So I have a hypothesis that I want to share with you. I imagine that if we change where the money comes from to make movies, we are going to be more free, more powerful, and we are going to reach more people. If the money to make movies doesn't come from Netflix or platforms, streaming, and everything. So there's private equity, private capital that are available there, and if they don't mess with the screenplays and they don't get into the storytelling, I think that's an opportunity, and I will love to hear what you think about it.
Look, we'll take money from anybody. If we have a good screenplay, we'll take their money. If private equity wants to step up, God bless them. We certainly take their money. So fortunately, the studios are still around and they're still giving us money. So that's good. But we'll take an extra few dollars from them too.
Do you feel that getting more money always equals to getting more freedom, like while making a film, or can it become like a prison in a way as well, like to have so much expectations maybe?
No, I think it's all in how persuasive you are as a filmmaker, how you can present your ideas and convince people that what you're doing is the right way to do it. It might not be, but if you're very convincing, you'll get your way.
Hi, Jerry. Nice to say you hi. It's a big honor. It's only a curiosity question because my favorite action movie of all the time is The Rock of Michael Bay, always. I was so in Malaga with 14 years. And I have a friend that is a screenwriter that told me, did you know that the character of Sean Connery, in fact, is like a kind of James Bond 007? And it's a theory in internet that says that The Rock is an undercover remake of a James Bond movie. Can you confirm that, please? Thank you so much.
It's a rumor and it's not true.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. Have you ever thought about using the power of your stories and the stories you produce to the big challenges of the world, like climate change and things like that? Thank you very much.
I haven't, but it's not a bad idea. It's just finding the time to do it.
How do you feel about the way that box office is reported? Because sometimes it feels like people are obsessed about, oh, this film's a success, this film is a failure, when most of the time real people don't know how much a film really needs to make to be profitable.
I mean, that's up to the financier, how much they want to share what they spent on a movie. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're honest and sometimes they're not.
Okay.
Hi again. Another question that I had, because earlier on you were talking about these big films like Wicked or Zootopia that are making money right now. But what happens when, for example, a movie from The Rock, The Smashing Machine, doesn't work, the Bruce Springsteen biopic, these kind of middle ground movies that are not very expensive but they're not really cheap are failing, because it seems like Hollywood is missing that kind of movies. Is there any kind of worrying in Hollywood that those films are going away?
I hope not. It's hard. Again, I said there's so much noise out there that you have to break through that noise and make something, even if it's a small movie, that is so compelling that you have to go see it, or the word of mouth is so good. Look, at good movies usually find an audience. They really do. If they can get exposed enough, they will find an audience. The word of mouth is what keeps movies going, and it happens over and over again. So that's what you need. You need to make a movie that people say you have to go see. And whether it's a movie that costs $20 million or a movie that costs $200 million, it's the same thing.
I'm curious, what has been the biggest film you have made? You were talking about how people decide if they want to tell the world how much a film costs, but what has been the biggest one for you?
The biggest?
Yeah, the most expensive.
Well, I won't talk about that.
You don't have to tell us the money.
The people who finance it can tell you that.
Okay, okay.
Not me.
James Cameron was saying that thing the other day when he was talking in the town, like, don't ask me how much my film costs, you have to ask Bob Iger. Yeah.
¿Qué opinión tiene de estos movimientos de Skydance comprando Paramount, Warner, HBO a la venta, Netflix queriendo comprar HBO Warner? ¿Cómo cree que puede cambiar el futuro del sistema de estudios en Hollywood, esta gran concentración de diferentes empresas en unas manos de un millonario?
How do you feel about all the movements that we are living nowadays in the industry with, for example, Warner kind of on sale, Skydance buying Paramount, and all the stuff that has been happening?
Well, it's contraction, which I don't like. It's unfortunate that we're losing another buyer for our movies, and it's been happening over and over again. So, but fortunately, there's Netflix and Amazon and Apple who've kind of leaned in. So, don't count out the streamers. We find so much talent when we see some of these shows, but whether they're writers or directors or actors, that chances are we'd never be exposed to. So that's really great things that we see that comes on streaming or on network television.
Mm-hmm. Última pregunta.
Hola, muy buenas, Sierra. Encantado de conocerte y tenerte ahora aquí en Madrid. Perdona que estoy un poco nervioso. Te quería preguntar, cuando te llega un guión a ti o a uno de tus agentes, ¿qué es lo primero que te fijas, aparte de que la idea sea buena y dar ese paso de o luz verde o rechazar la idea? Y si me puedes dar algún consejo también te lo agradecería mucho. Gracias.
He's so happy to talk to you. He wants to know what's the first thing that you notice in a screenplay when they send you to you or your agents and you get, okay, the high concept is this, but what's the next thing that you pay attention to?
What, the next thing after the screenplay?
Yeah, no, after the concept, the main idea, what do you pay in
well,
attention
it's
to?
a story, and then how the characters relate to that story, how they drive the story.
And is there anything that you can recommend to people that are trying to sell their screenplays, like focus on this?
Have a great idea, and then fill it out. That's it. Come up with a great character.
Okay, and one last question, cortita, por favor.
Well, you actually answered the question I had. I
Okay.
wanted to ask about the screenplay, and I wanted to thank you about bringing the attention back to have a group experience. Yeah, that's it. I wanted to ask you what's the difference between, for you, what catch your eye when you see a good screenplay? What is? But there is so many ways, I guess. So
You visualize when I read a screenplay. I visualize it. I see it, and if it's something that I would pay money to go see that excites me, then I'll try to get it made.
Thank
you,
very much.
Jerry. It's been such an honor, and good luck with F1 and all you do. Thank you.